I do want to mention what Suzanne Prescott from Albuquerque has asked, and she says that this is a quite informative webcast, but she said what would be helpful to me is a quick summary which I could distribute in our neighborhood, which summarizes the impact of recovery money. Nobody in my neighborhood wants to listen to long and complicated lectures, but a good summary sure would be helpful.
You can't deny that anywhere in the country that you are, that the Recovery Act first has had an impact on the finances of your state government, right? If it had a budget crisis to begin with, you know, that crisis is a lot less severe than it is because of the amount of money that the federal government kind of shoveled into each of the states, you know, in state fiscal relief, additional Medicaid funding, and so forth. So your state is certainly better off, and that's probably had an impact on the level of services that you receive as a state resident. If you're in a position where you were, you know, unemployed, you know, you're better off because of the Recovery Act, because in all likelihood you've had extended unemployment benefits. In all likelihood you've been able to afford more easily to carry the health care coverage, you know, the COBRA coverage from your last employer, because the federal government is subsidizing the cost of that coverage. You know, you may be getting, you know, food stamps or more food stamps than you would otherwise have been getting, you know, if not for the Recovery Act. Chances are, if you have kids in school, the chances are that the classrooms are not, you know, as crowded as they might otherwise have been. That you know, because teacher layoffs were averted because of the spending. You know, there's a good chance that some roads somewhere near your house were improved, you know, because of the spending. There's a chance that, you know, your house, if you're low income, will get weatherized as a result of the spending. So, you know, I think there are a lot of ways in which, you know, individuals and communities, you know, have seen improvements. You know, whether or not, you know, whatever you conclude about the job numbers, I mean, a lot of money has been spent, and it has had an impact on communities. And we just have to look and see where it happened.
Let me just jump in real quick. Suzanne, was it? Suzanne, fedspending.org. If you go out to that website, there's a tab on there called Recovery, and that is a website run by OMB Watch, and we've put the Recovery Act recipient data just for the third quarter of last year in there. We're working on getting the most recent data in there. But fedspending.org, find the recovery stuff, and you should be able to do a lot of advanced searching to find out what's actually going on in your community.
I will just say that we probably are better off than we would have been. But unfortunately, the jury is still out with me with regard to how much impact it has had. And again, thinking about whether or not we have missed that opportunity to reduce inequities in our country. I think the jury will be out for quite some time until we figure out how to get the data. But I think I will echo what you have said. I mean, clearly, you know, in schools across the country, I know in my own school district, we've saved teachers, but at the same time, we're now going to see the parent coordinators probably across the district are going to be laid off. And that there has been some quick maneuvering with regard to money. So for example, with regard to education, where money has come into a school district in Maryland, for example, the school district could get a waiver, I mean the county could get a waiver for giving its portion of funding to the school district because these extra federal dollars are coming in. And so you see, you know, counties saying, okay, well the feds are coming in, so we don't have to do our part on education because the feds are going to do it. But that was supposed to be money that's supplemented. And so I think what we could have seen is often being, we're getting a runaround and falling through the loopholes where we could have made some serious gains. We're not seeing them, unfortunately.
And the final, I can't add to any of that. That was all great. The one thing that I want to say that has been raised is from the point of view of context, I feel like it's worth stepping back for a moment and thinking that you know, we've discussed transparency and accountability for an hour and a half, and it's noteworthy that we have not spoken about, you know, horrible spending mistakes or boondoggles or fraud or waste. Because I think had there been, and there's certainly been small level examples, but had there been really big examples, I feel like nobody would sit around at the 1 year anniversary talking about transparency and accountability. We'd be talking about all the crazy things that happened. That hasn't come around, and that's not to say it won't. It's certainly possible that 6 months from now or a year from now, we'll find some really bad things that happen. We haven't yet, and I think that the government probably deserves some credit for that, and maybe it's because there's been so much transparency and accountability. Earl Devaney has said, he's the chair of the Recovery Board, he said, you know what, it's not surprising there hasn't been more fraud, waste, and abuse, because everyone who might have thought of it knows that there's so much attention on this money, it's just too much trouble. So I think it's probably just worth noting that as of yet, the topic of discussion remains the transparency mechanisms and not what might have gone wrong, at least for the moment.
And maybe I can wrap it up, Suzanne, by saying it's not only about New Mexico or Albuquerque, but I think throughout the country, I think it is amazing that the Recovery Act has done what it has done in 1 year. It is striking. I think there are at least 4 ways that communities are feeling it today. First, as has been talked about, the first year was really helping those most in need, including the states and the individuals, and you saw that. The second way is for this coming year, more discretionary money is going to be spent on everything from roads to schools to disability issues to broadband kinds of concerns. And you will see more of that in your community this year. Thirdly, I think the big issue is not enough resources are yet put out to turn the jobs issue around as we look at unemployment, and more will be needed. And finally, I think all of you in New Mexico and all of you around the country should be greatly concerned as the Recovery Act dollars go away. It will put much greater stress on all the programs that have had support. So I encourage you all to get more involved as time moves along and talking to your members of Congress and talking in your community about the importance of these Recovery Act dollars.